We're on.
Ooh, straight into it today. Welcome everyone to We're Not Helpful, a podcast about books, our recommendations, thoughts and opinions, and everything in between. I am Eloise, and joining me as always are... You do this every
We do
time.
this every time, and you haven't learned. You haven't
I
learned.
really
No.
haven't learned. That's Brayton and Julian. Hello, Brayton and Julian.
Hello. Yep.
What?
We are into the double digits now, so we do not have time to muck around. We're straight into
it. All right. So this week I have a question for you both.
Yes, it's cleared up. The antibiotics did their job. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, okay. Apart from that, I was thinking about last week or the week before, whenever it was when we were last talking about our favorite adaptations. And I thought to myself, what book have you read that has not yet been adapted into either film or television that you would just absolutely love to see an adaptation of? Any thoughts?
Now, here's the thing. You preempted that, and this is not the main thing we're going to be talking about.
No, I thought
This
it
is
would
just a random thing that you came up with.
quick random thing to ease everyone into the episode.
Yeah, which you warned me about this, and I did no thought about it. I did not think about it at all after you told me. You said you had an answer, so I just assumed you would talk.
I do have an answer. So this is a two-part question. It's what book would you love to see an adaptation of that has not yet been adapted? And also, what book would you never want to see an adaptation of? Either something that has already been adapted and should not have been, or a book that has not yet been adapted, but you're like, no, the medium itself is perfect and should never be film or television. So I had a couple of thoughts. So my first thought in relation to a book that I would love to see an adaptation of is The Night Circus. So have either of you read The Night Circus?
No.
It has, I keep seeing it in bookstores and I keep meaning to get it and I never have.
I'm just trying to look for it on my shelf because I've unfortunately forgotten the name of the author, which is terrible.
Isn't it like Aaron Morganson or
Yes,
something like that?
Morganson. Yes, I think so.
If you're listening, I'm sorry we mucked up your. Of course, they're definitely listening.
Sure, absolutely. It's a lovely story about.
Oh, I got it right. Aaron Morgenstern.
Okay.
Aaron Morgenstern. Sorry, Aaron, not Eric. Sorry, Aaron.
So it's a lovely story about two warring magicians who are in fact real magicians. So they can do real magic, and they decide to create a circus and have apprentices to essentially war against each other in this circus as who has the best act, essentially the best and most popular act. But the thing is that they've taught their two apprentices real magic as well. So rather than it being, like illusion and magic tricks or whatever, they are in fact using real magic in this circus. And of course, things go astray because the two fall in love instead of becoming enemies, essentially. So it's a bit of
as old as time.
A tale as old as time, two warring magicians falling in love with each other, essentially. I would love to see that as either a movie or a limited series. The one book that I would think should never be adapted to film or television is one that has been adapted, and that's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Awful adaptation of a film. I can't believe we actually didn't touch on it in that particular episode. There is just so much charm and jokes that do not make sense off the page. Like, there are certain things that only work in the book. And admittedly, there are jokes also that only work in the radio adaptation as well. But yeah, and I've not seen the original television miniseries by the BBC, so I can't really comment on that. But personally, I don't think people should try to adapt Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I think it's a very good book on its own.
Well, you should have jumped back in time over many decades and told them that.
Yes, go back and tell Martin Freeman, you're going to be the Hobbit. You don't need this film.
Because that worked out so well for him too.
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
Having said that, though, Alan Rickman as, I can't remember the robot's name. Marvin?
Marvin, yes. Head
that
the
was
size of a planet. You see, you
Yeah.
can't do that joke visually.
But Alan Rickman was inspired casting for that role.
It was. And Stephen Fry as the narrator was perfect, and Bill Bailey as the whale falling to Earth was also perfect. That's about it, really.
See, there's always something good to say in every adaptation.
That is true. Julian, did you have any thoughts with my 3 hours of prep when I sent the message? You're looking at me blankly.
That's just his normal face.
So one that I would enjoy seeing an adaptation of, and there probably is one out there somewhere, but a Dean Koontz novel called Watchers, which the long story short, it's about two genetically engineered creatures that escape a lab. One is an ultra intelligent golden retriever, and the other is an ultra intelligent bit of a conglomeration of different animals.
Ooh.
The conglomeration of different animals was bred to be a killer, basically, and hates the retriever because in the lab the retriever was showered with praise and love and affection and what have you, and it was basically shown evil people and things and deeds and bred to kill and hate. And so when they escape, the creature goes after the retriever, who finds a man who used to be a special forces person and reveals his intelligence, and they go on the run together, and it's quite an interesting story. And it's probably been adapted back in the 80s when it was first written, but if it wasn't well done. So I'd love to see it would be a lot more famous if it was done well.
It sounds very similar to a graphic novel I've seen where there's like, what is it? 3 animals that are kind of like half cyborg animals or something. I'm probably not explaining that at all very well. I'm sure it's actually a graphic novel we have on our shelf that my husband has bought. So I'll look for that and talk about it later.
Cool.
And one that a few years ago, if you'd have asked the question, I would have said, don't adapt Gerald's Game because it would be an impossible task. But Mike Flanagan proved us wrong.
Oh, yeah. Well, you spoke about that in that last episode, didn't you?
So I'm going to say there is a short story called The Breathing Method by Stephen King that people keep clamoring for an adaptation of, that I think would be a bad idea because it exists very well as a creepy kind of enclosed story. And I don't think the film would make it worthwhile.
Cool. Brayden, have you thought of anything yourself in the last 2 minutes?
Yes. I just finished reading Golden Sun, which is the second part of the Red Rising saga.
Yes, I saw your reel on Facebook and Instagram today.
Yep, I put that up there. Amazing book. Loved it. Loved every second of it. So that, of course, you'd have to do Red Rising first and then Golden Sun, and then finish off the trilogy with Morning Star, which I'm really excited to read. And then maybe get into the other 3 books. It's like, I think the series is split up like 2 trilogies at the moment.
So we just need to petition to start a new franchise, basically.
Yes. I'm fairly certain the books have already been optioned for movies. But I don't know when or if they're coming out.
Right, Brayden, what is the idea for this episode this week?
I wanted to go first. We got some listener mail.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Which I realized editing last podcast, I kept saying viewer mail, not listener mail, which makes no sense in an audio format.
How could you do this to us?
So
it's going to have to start all over again.
Yeah, so I've already gone ahead and deleted every other episode. This is episode 1.
Hello, welcome.
Then again, I think we could do better if we just decided to hit reset on everything and start again.
Well, look, we did say from the start that we're not helpful, so
we are not. No. So we have email from Sylvia again.
Hello.
Sylvia's
Sylvia.
Corner. Welcome
Sylvia's Corner.
to Sylvia's Corner.
There's that theme song.
Now.
Don't chase away our only fan.
Sorry.
Okay, so she says, hello there across the pond and a continent. So apparently I can say across the pond, and as long as I add and a continent.
Okay.
Good.
Good to know.
She says, first off, there seems to be something weird going on with my comments on Instagram. They kind of vanished lately, at least in your post. Not sure why. So I'll stop interacting for a few days and hopefully it'll be gone when I return. Yeah, we had a bit of back and forth, and apparently whenever she commented on one of our posts, it just kind of vanished. Even though
It's Eloise deleting them out of spite for her
Yeah.
views on Moby Dick.
No, I'm not doing. Don't say that. I have no
like,
idea why it would be doing that.
It was weird. I could see them and reply to them, but apparently Sylvia couldn't. But she has responded later, so hopefully, Sylvia, that's been fixed. And then she says, now onto the podcast. So if you remember, our last episode was about bad writing advice.
Mm.
And I think she's got a doozy here.
Ooh.
She said, worst writing advice I've got. You're too healthy. What are you going to write about?
What?
Apparently, I needed some more trauma and possibly one or two addictions to be considered a true artist. I suppose normal people and fantasy stories are not worth talking about. Sad.
Yes, if you didn't realize, all artists are truly tortured.
Yeah.
On the brink of a breakdown at any point.
That is when true art is made.
Yeah, Sylvia, I think we can all agree that that's terrible advice.
That
it's
is
just a terrible thing to say.
Awful advice. Oh my goodness. She then says sleepwalkers. I think Julian mentioned sleepwalkers. Or she had mentioned sleepwalkers as an adaptation she enjoyed. She said, I stand corrected. The story was written for the movie and later on released as a book, so it doesn't count as an adaptation. I still like it though. It was entertaining and cats are the heroes.
That's true. Cats are the heroes, and it is delightfully 90s cheese. And introduced us to a young actress named, I have no idea how to pronounce her name. I think it's Machen. Anyway, she guest starred on Dawson's Creek after that for a few episodes and told Dawson his movie was awful. So thank you for that. We appreciate that.
His movie was awful.
It was awful.
I don't know. I haven't watched Dawson's Creek.
You damn kids with your music.
It's just surprising that Julian is really into Dawson's Creek for some reason.
It was just like right outside the realm of what I was interested in watching. I think I was basically 2 years too young for it.
I will say though, if you didn't watch Dawson's Creek, definitely track down Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23.
Oh, because James Van Beek is in it playing himself?
James Van Beek plays himself in that, and it is his best role ever. It is so funny.
Yes, I would agree.
So Sylvia goes on to say, I don't like the don't use fancy syntax or wording because what is fancy? There is no agreed upon definition. What is fancy to me might be normal to someone else, and maybe I use a word every day and some bloke will think that's fancy. It also depends on locale. Words that are common use in one region but hardly seen in another, or words that are common in one country but considered outdated or antique in another. Anyways, I bow my farewells here and wish you a lovely week. Cheers, Sylvia.
Oh, thank you very much, Sylvia, for once again writing in. Yes, that was a very delightful piece of bad advice. Thank you for that.
That was awful. And yeah, I agree. Like, locale and the context of a story definitely takes into account. Like, I was just talking before about Australian slang and me saying like things like, oh yeah, me and my mate Bazza went down to the servo on the way to a Macca's run.
We can understand that.
You guys understood exactly what I meant. We got to stop in.
I understand nothing.
Yeah, but that's just you.
That's just life. That's just me.
Life. So yes, thank you again, Sylvia. Your emails are always a pleasure to read.
And anyone else's as well. If you feel like writing in, please do write in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We love to receive and read out all of the stuff.
Absolutely. All right. On to our main discussion for today.
What have you got for us, Brayton?
I thought, inspired by our thing of bad writing advice from our last episode, I thought we could take a look today at some purposefully bad writing. which I think is a lot more challenging than it sounds.
It really is actually.
Because you can write bad on accident, no problem, but purposefully trying to write bad is, I think, really difficult. So I thought today we would take a look at the Bulwer-Lytton Fiction Contest. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, Edward Bulwer-Lytton, I hope I'm saying that right, he was an English writer and politician. He lived from 1803 to 1873, so he's well and truly passed on.
So it's okay to make fun of him.
Absolutely. But surprising fact, the suburb of Lytton in Brisbane was actually named after him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And there's also Bulwer Island, which
Okay.
is where was it? I just had it up. No, there's a town of Bulwer on Moreton Island.
Oh,
So
okay.
also named after him. So, but he is famous for, you may have heard it. It's a well tread don't know what the word is, but it's like almost a parody of bad writing of the opening phrase, "It was a dark and stormy night."
That's right. Yes.
He although I didn't know this when I looked it up. He is most famous for using it, but he didn't actually write it himself. It
Really?
was, yes, it was actually, he took it from an earlier work.
Huh.
First appeared apparently in the Journal of the Doddington Shipwreck that was read throughout England in 1757.
When you say the diary, was it like an actual diary or was it a novel?
I have no idea.
Okay.
In all honesty, my amount of research is reading Wikipedia. I'd be very open with that.
Fair enough.
We are not an information podcast.
Because
That
we're
is-
not helpful.
That is I am very open. That is the extent of the research I have done for this little part. So yes, so it was, the Donington actually was a ship that was shipwrecked. So I'm assuming a diary of a survivor was published, and it was apparently became quite popular. But It Was a Dark and Stormy Night was apparently originated in that book, and he took it and put it in his book, which was the novel Paul Clifford, written in 1830, or published in 1830.
What exactly
Now,
happens in that book, or do you not know?
I have no idea, and it's not important to what we're going to be talking about.
We'll look at it later.
If you're interested, look it up.
It's called the internet.
So, like when you say it was a dark and stormy night, that sentence is pretty fine as is. But when you look at the whole thing, it kind of does fall apart a little bit. So it's considered to represent the archetypal example of a florid, melodramatic style of fiction writing, also known as purple prose. So here's the quote in full that I actually hadn't heard about until fairly recently. But here's the whole opening paragraph, and I'll get your reactions to it. It was a dark and stormy night. The rain fell in torrents, except at occasional intervals when it was checked by a violent gust of wind which swept up the streets, for it is in London that our scene lies, rattling along the housetops and fiercely agitating the scanty flame of the lamps that struggled against the darkness.
I think your delivery probably needs to be has something wanting there.
Yes. I didn't. Shall I try again? A bit more dramatic?
No, that's all right. Let's move on.
So,
yes, you're right. It does completely fall apart where it's like, I don't. Okay, we're talking too much now. There's too much description. That sentence should have been half as long.
Fair enough. So Edward Bulwer-Lytton was known for that, and unfortunately, that's kind of his claim to fame, because he actually had a very good career as a novelist. He also coined famous phrases such as the pursuit of the almighty dollar.
Really?
Almighty Allah.
The almighty dollar. Hilarious. As well as apparently the pen is mightier than the sword. That's one of his.
Wow, okay.
Yep. He also was a contemporary of Charles Dickens.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep. And it says here, among Bulwer Lytton's lesser known contributions to literature was that he convinced Charles Dickens to revise the ending of Great Expectations to make it more palatable to the reading public. As in the
Oh,
original
so
version of the novel.
It was him who got Charles Dickens to put in the robot monkeys.
Yeah, that was his suggestion. It says in the original version of the novel, Pip and Estella do not get together.
Ah, okay.
Now, I have not read Great Expectations, so robot monkeys it is. So yeah, so that's a very brief summary of Bulwer Lytton. And today I wanted to talk about the Bulwer Lytton contest, which is run every year. And it says on their website, since 1982, the Bulwer Lytton Fiction Contest has challenged participants to write an atrocious opening sentence to the worst novel ever written.
I love this competition. I do tend to read it every few years just to see what the entries are, and they're so funny.
Some of them
they're so good
are
because
just
they're so bad.
legitimately, yes, exactly. Some of them are so bad you have to groan, and others are so good in a bad way.
Yeah.
So I thought we could.
I sometimes feel bad because I'll read some of them and I'll be like, I didn't think that was so bad. I'd read that story.
Yeah, I know.
I think, what's wrong with me?
Oh, let's not open that door.
Oh, ha ha ha.
There's one in here we might get to that actually, if it was in the horror category,
Mm.
would be an amazing opening to a horror story.
Is it not a horror story though?
I think it was submitted in the romance section.
Brilliant.
Funny how close that line is.
Yeah, you're threading the needle. So I thought we'd go through some of these and just get our reactions because, we've had bad writing advice, but let's look at people actively trying to write bad.
Love it. Fire away.
All right. So the 2023, apparently they announced their winners every summer in the US. So it'd be winter for here. But the 2023 results are out. And if you go onto bulwer-lytton.com, you can read all the previous entries. Okay, all the way back to 1996.
Ah, okay.
Sorry. But here is, shall we start with the 2023 grand prize winner?
Oh, I don't know. I'd like to lead up to the grand prize.
You want to lead up? Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got different categories here. Let me read out some categories and I'll let you guys pick which category you'd like me to read from. Now, each category has a winner and several dishonorable mentions. So
I don't know if those people should feel good or bad for not winning.
exactly. So let me read out some of these categories and I'll let you guys tell me which ones you'd like to start with. So we won't do the grand prize yet. We have adventure, children's literature and young adult, crime and detective, dark and stormy, fantasy and horror, historical fiction, purple prose, romance, science fiction, vile puns, western, or odious outliers.
Why don't we start with purple prose, considering we've just been speaking about that with Sylvia's
Sounds
email.
good. All right, purple prose. This is the winner for purple prose, Frederick Ankowalski. I hope I'm saying that right, from Santa Monica, California. And I'll try and vary my performance here. She was just like Greta, who'd poisoned her family, burned down my house, bombed 6 countries, and used a gun on anyone she wanted. Short.
What? I love it. Publish that. I will give you all the money.
Great. I have not read all of these myself, so I'm trying not to crack up halfway through. Shall we go through a few dishonorable mentions?
Sure.
Lauren Bochar from Portland, Oregon. The wind howled and the autumn leaves skittered around my driveway like a legion of angry crabs fighting over a sandwich. Oh, I like that. That's a good one.
That is certainly some type of imagery right there.
The thing is that the idea of leaves being crabs for every sandwich is actually really good, I think. It's
See,
a
this is what
horror.
I
It's
was
a.
saying about how sometimes you can read them and go, "What's wrong with that?"
I mean, it's horrible, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you get your point across.
I would fight over a sandwich if it was good enough.
Wouldn't we all?
Mm.
All right. Shall we go to another section?
Julian, your pick this time.
Oh, romance.
Romance. All right.
Mm.
This is the winner, Anyana Benegal from St. Louis. It was love at first sight. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a dimpled smile, twinkling green eyes, and in keeping with his combination of statistically unlikely but deeply alluring features, type AB blood, and that condition where cilantro tastes like soap.
My kind of guy.
There's a shortage of perfect men in this world.
There really is.
This is the one that makes it sound like a horror.
Oh, good.
All right. It wasn't the way that she moved that first caught Edward's attention, but rather that she didn't move at all, and her cold, porcelain-like skin set his heart aflame, because after all, she was the most beautiful corpse he had ever laid eyes on.
I knew that's where it was going. Oh. Yes, that is a horror story.
Yes, as some sort of psychological thriller or horror movie, that is a perfect opening.
Isn't that I'm sure that's a Liam Neeson film, actually.
Yes, with Christina Ricci.
Yeah, you know the one I'm talking
is it?
about.
I know the one you're talking about. Mm.
That's a
So we're saying
horrifying film.
This is a rip-off.
Yes.
Or maybe they took inspiration from it.
Maybe they did.
Yes, that was.
I do
Before
like
time.
that. As a horror story, that is a good opening. As a romance, yes, thoroughly deserves to be on this list.
I say that was a dishonorable mention, and I think we can all understand why. Here's another good one from the romance section. They had gone through fire and ice to be together, but the general mood of the wedding would have been improved if he wasn't suffering from second-degree burns and she hadn't lost several toes to frostbite.
That's fucking dumb. Immediately, I was thinking, Game of Thrones-esque kind of thing. No, literal. We've gone with literal.
Literal,
okay.
yeah. When you read a lot of these, some of them are some of them are really clever, and others are very obvious.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the obvious ones are very funny too.
You know, I think having taught middle school English for 15 years kind of changed where the bar is for bad writing for me. So some of these are not that bad, really.
I was going to say, if one of your students put in the one about frostbite and second-degree burns, like where are we looking at a grade? If for some sort of creative writing task, if they brought that in as their opening paragraph.
To start with, they submitted something, so I'm already happy.
Thank God.
They've cleared the first hurdle.
And they've given me an orientation. So you know what? Tick for structure.
Hooray.
All right, Eloise, your turn to pick.
Ooh, how about fantasy? There was fantasy on the list, wasn't there?
Fantasy and horror. All right, grand prize winner from Drew Herman. In the best town name so far, Midlothian.
Ooh.
In VA. What state in the US is VA?
Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Oh, no. Virginia, I think.
Virginia?
I think so.
Sure.
I would love it if the winner is like it actually it's a romance rather than a horror.
All right, the winner here from Drew Herman in Midlothian, VA. Drew might be an elf, who knows? Actually, very, very good town to come from, considering they won the fantasy section.
Mm.
Oh, and there's a lot of big words in this. Here we go. I think that's intentional. In obedience to the 1,000-year mandate of Hawk's Realm, following the prophecy of Glenfrick the Morrow's Sayer, Clagnar and his thus far loyal Death Sword warriors journeyed countless sky turns across the burning plains of Hellsplat and the great eastern Doomsea to an immense shining folk shiv that more or less resembled Fresno, but with more genre-appropriate name.
I feel attacked.
I really like that one.
I don't think the names are like sound enough like each other. Isn't that supposed to be the structure of fantasy? Whereas a whole bunch of names are just like they sound a little bit similar but are slightly different.
I think I've definitely read some fantasy books where the way of naming things just let's just squish as many consonants as we can together and see what comes out.
I mean, they're definitely words. Some of them, at least, were.
Thing is, I'm sure you can't really separate the English teacher from this, can you?
No, see, the problem is I've read stories that sound very much like that, and so I hate every minute of it.
But you don't have to give it a mark though.
No, I don't.
We're forcing Julian to do his job instead of the fun part of podcasting.
Oh, look, I'm having a great time.
I am too.
All right, here's a good one from the fantasy dishonorable mentions pile. Grunch Cuck the Vile couldn't believe that the 250-year-old Frodo Baggins was still alive after he had dealt him countless blows with his iron-spiked dwarf death orb, slashed him to ribbons with his elf shredder axe, and run him through with his goblin cleaver, until he remembered his orc mother had once told him, "Old hobbits die hard."
But yeah, that was awful.
That was awful, but I love a good pun.
Plus, is it still like I didn't think Lord of the Rings was in public domain yet.
No, but they don't seem to mind.
I don't. Well, I guess it's because they're not actually publishing anything.
No, and there's no monetary value to winning these things. I think they used to have a monetary win if you won like the grand prize. You used to get a couple of $100 or something.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that they. Yeah.
I think now you just get a certificate.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
no one. There's
my own
no
certificate.
Yeah, there's no money exchange. So I think everything's clear.
Fair enough.
Let's see. Here we go. The townsfolk were approaching the castle, holding flaming sticks, ready to express their displeasure with the monster that the scientists within had supposedly created from various cemeteries in the area. And as the crowd got within sight of the castle, blood-curdling screams filled the night because the flaming sticks they carried were too short and the flames were now burning their hands.
Okay. Sounds like a Mel Brooks film.
It does.
And can I just point out that scene does not actually occur in the novel?
No, there is
doesn't.
there's no windmill.
No, there's no. Well, there are a group of angry townspeople, but not at the monster.
Yes.
They're actually angry at someone else in the novel, and they lynch the poor person.
Yeah.
And the monster escapes anyway because then Frankenstein like follows him and there's this like whole trek through. Is it the
Spoilers for like a
Antarctic or
250-year-old book?
Yeah, in the Arctic. What's that meme where I've seen someone who's like taken the last page of Frankenstein and then written it in biro saying, and as the monster like floated out to sea, he called back, "It's all right if people get our names mixed up. It's fine. I understand," or something along those lines. I love that.
Yeah, Frankenstein was the doctor, not the monster.
Yes.
Well, one could argue he was the monster.
Yes, Frankenstein was the monster.
Fun fact: he's never referred to as a monster in the book or the Kenneth Branagh film. He's referred to either as the creature or the sharp-featured man. Yeah. Never the monster. It wasn't until what's his name, Karloff played him,
and that's like a completely not representation of the book anyway. We want to talk about bad adaptations.
No.
Back to that.
Yeah, the Kenneth Branagh.
Sorry.
No, the Kenneth Branagh Frankenstein is an interesting movie.
It nails the adaptation up until about the last 20 minutes or so, and then just goes completely off the rails.
Yeah, I don't remember being too impressed by how it ended. The book's good though. I have read the book.
That's just Branagh doing Branagh, and no one saying, "Hey, maybe rein it in a bit."
Yeah,
because he's Branagh.
Yeah,
that happens a lot.
And he's still making movies.
Yeah,
he will never top his performance in Wild Wild West though. That was the pinnacle.
No, we're not
the pinnacle of acting talent.
Okay.
What was that?
Move on. New topic.
But what did I hate to say it, what did you always tell me, Julian, that he did that movie so he could do Hamlet or something?
He did the movie so that he could do Love's Labour's Lost.
Love's Labour's Lost. That's it.
Ah.
I will. I mean, okay. Anyone out there? We're talking about adaptations. Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet, fantastic. There's one scene that ruins the whole thing for me.
Ah,
The frickin' throwing a sword from a balcony and impaling Derek Jacobi through the chest into his throne. I'm just like, what were you thinking?
well, it was very theatrical.
It's very theatrical, but it's so ridiculous.
And it wasn't even a proper sword. It was a rapier, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a
Fencing sword.
Yeah,
You wouldn't be able to do that.
no way. It just, at the end of a 4-hour movie, that happens. I was like, well, that was a waste of 4 hours.
Tell us how you really feel, Brayton.
Oh, look, it was good. It was very good. And the fact he took it on and did it like no cuts, did the entire script uncut.
If you like Shakespeare, you have to see it.
Absolutely, yes. But to end it with a javelin throw, it's just so ridiculous. Anyway, what topic? Right. Which section should we move on to next?
Which section? Ooh,
whose turn to pick? I think it's Julian.
Julian again.
I have forgotten the categories.
We've got adventure, children's literature, crime and detective, dark and stormy, historical fiction.
Let's go dark and stormy in honor of the man it's named after.
Dark and stormy. All right. So this is taking direct inspiration from the original quote. So the winner, Fred Mason from Evansville, Indianapolis, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyone from the US listening, we don't know the abbreviations for US states. I'm sorry.
We don't care.
There's too many states.
I will be confidently incorrect with all of them.
Yeah.
Is this competition only open to people in the States?
No, you can submit worldwide, I believe.
Oh, okay. Just a coincidence that we're only reading out winners from the States by the sounds of it.
If we go into the dishonorable mention this category, the first two, one's from Germany and the next one is from Ireland.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
And there's England. Yeah, so yeah, it's worldwide. I think they get the most entries from the US though. So it's probably skewed a little bit.
Right.
All right, here we go. This is the dark and stormy. Time was passing as slow as a snail on Valium. That's
really slow.
I love
so slow.
I have not read some of these, so this is the first one. I love that. I unironically love that line.
I'm going to tell my students to use something similar. I love it. It's brilliant.
That is a fantastic line.
That is a very, very.
Is that it, or did you just pause to laugh?
No, there's more. I just paused because I do absolutely love that line.
I feel like it should have just been that, and that was it.
Yeah. All right. Time was passing as slow as a snail on Valium as I waited on this dark and stormy night for the taxi I called that would probably never come to this wretched street where the waterfront serial killer had, in the past year, strangled 9 women, 2 cats, and a parrot. But that is another story.
There is so much going on, and that's not even the story. I love that.
I would read that.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened to the parrot. What did the parrot do?
Oh,
that's not the story. The story is probably about his car ride home in the taxi.
Yeah, it's a serious drama. Nothing to do with the serial killer.
Where he gets kidnapped by aliens in the taxi.
Ooh.
It's just a taxi ride.
Okay, sorry. I didn't realize.
That's fantastic.
I legitimately really liked that one.
I think if you reworded that entire opening so it was like a proper opening with sentence structure that made sense and wasn't ridiculous sounding, that could actually be quite a good story.
I think in a serious book, you could easily work that, she moved as slow as a snail on Valium. I think that's perfectly legitimate.
Not to mention, there's at least a half a dozen failed Chekhov's guns in that opening passage right
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Outstanding. I think broke every rule of an orientation for literature.
And that would have taken a lot of thought to do. Like, it would be hard to do that on accident.
Mm.
Oh, I could do it on accident.
Speaking of, buy Julian's book on Amazon.
You will.
Yes, it's brilliant.
Sorry,
He
I'm being
breaks every literary rule.
unnecessarily mean and insulting there.
So many subplots that don't go anywhere.
Neither does the main plot. Really.
You're not selling it, Julian.
I'm hoping they'll think it's so bad that it must be worth reading, just so they can trash it to their friends.
Yeah, one of those.
Hey, any publicity is good publicity.
Exactly.
They're the suckers who bought it.
And if anyone doesn't know, Chekhov's gun is the rule that in any story or play, there must be a gun.
Yeah.
That is the rule of
explanation,
Chekhov's gun.
Brain.
Yeah, name me one story that does not have a gun.
You can't do it. It's
You
impossible.
can't. It's impossible.
Can't do it.
You can't do it.
In 12 Angry Men, that whole story is resolved because the lead juror pulls out a gun and shoots the rest of them.
It is a very famous Mexican standoff at the end of 12 Angry Men.
And we've all seen Mel Gibson's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Oh,
Yes.
Where he kills everyone in the Senate or Congress or wherever he is.
Citizen Kane, it wasn't a sled, it was a gun.
Yeah.
It was a gun cane.
Yeah. What?
A gun cane. It was a gun inside his cane.
Oh, inside a cane, of course.
You know, the cane from Citizen Kane.
Cane from Citizen Kane.
It was a gun.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the rule. Everything follows the rule of Chekhov's gun. There must be a gun.
Yeah. I would really love it if there's someone out there who doesn't know what Chekhov's gun is and has no idea what we're talking about.
Well, they know now.
They do. That's true. You tell all your friends.
Shall we hear some dishonorable mentions?
Please.
Yes.
It was a dark and stormy night at the harbours of Sydney, where wind whipped the seawater across the docks and the torrents of rain soaked everything that the waves could not reach. But luckily for James Tyche, this story begins at the beach in southern France, where it is currently day and James was gradually developing a healthy tan and a less healthy sunburn.
That sounds like the start of a comedy, frankly.
Absolutely. Maybe that's why it's a dishonorable mention, because it's too obvious.
Yeah, quite funny.
Yeah. All right. Shall we move on? What about Crime and Detective?
Oh, I was going to ask for that one next.
You were going to ask for that one next? All right. Here we go. The winner, Julian Calvin from Atlanta, Georgia. The tall, slender seductress had Tom Pawley wrapped around her little finger, and she had James McGee hanging from a necklace. But the police were still waiting for the lab results to determine whose body parts she had been using to make her earrings and that stunning tennis bracelet.
Yeah, that's bad.
I'm surprised that's the winner, because that seems a little too obvious.
I'm actually kind of disappointed with that as being the winner.
I want that to be adapted into a film.
Sure.
I want to know more about this woman. How big is she to have someone wrapped around her finger?
I guess it was just part of them. They were
Mm.
turned into a ring.
All right. Shall we go to a dishonorable mention?
Yep.
Okay. Elsie was seated by the window overlooking the deserted boardwalk, the crime scene in this saga, holding the hand of her beloved Jeremy, the soon-to-be unwitting accomplice, when George, who you will soon learn is the murderer, suddenly opened the door to their cozy loft, holding a cup of coffee, and said, "This cup is for you, Elsie." And this cup would, of course, be her last. But you do not know any of this yet.
Wow.
I think that broke a few rules of the crime genre.
Yeah. I think
I've
it
read
broke
worse.
rules, like in just like human rules in general.
I've read worse foreshadowing,
Yep.
Really?
but not much worse.
Love to know what the worst foreshadowing was.
Oh, here's a good one from the dishonorable mentions. Okay. Officer Meyer Briggs burst into the bedroom and saw Professor Rorschach standing over the body of his mother, bloody knife in hand. I swear it's not what it looks like, Rorschach exclaimed.
Okay.
I
Yeah, that's
do
almost
love a good pun.
That's almost too clever.
Yeah.
Perhaps you might want to explain for listeners who don't know who Rorschach was.
He is a character in the Watchmen comic. Yep.
Thank you.
That
There we go. Moving on. No,
No, that's not helpful. We're fulfilling our vow.
Yep,
good.
that's also true.
Okay. To be helpful for a second, the Rorschach test is the ink blot test that psychologists. I don't actually know. Is that actually used?
I don't think it's really used anymore. Like it's certainly not used in like just general therapy. I've never done anything that has to do with
I've never
tests.
done a Rorschach test when I've been in therapy.
Because frankly, all I ever see is just, the uterus. It's just uterus or a bat.
Uteruses. Tell me more.
You're saying your uterus is as empty as a bat cave?
Yeah.
Bat caves are actually quite full of bats. Interesting correlation, Eloise.
Yeah,
let's explore this more.
Well, you know why? It's because I'm Batman.
Well, I'm shocked.
Dark.
Shocked.
I knew it was coming because, quite frankly, like if you could see what she was wearing, like the dark eye makeup around her eyes, the cow is really obvious.
There was that time she came over dressed as Batman and saved us.
That was it. Yeah.
Probably should have seen that coming.
Mild-mannered billionaire Eloise.
Yep. I don't use my millions.
I don't think Bruce Wayne is mild-mannered, is he? I thought that was Superman's.
Superman is mild-mannered.
Yeah, Superman is mild-mannered.
Bruce Wayne is a rich asshole.
Quite volatile, really.
He would do much more good if he invested his money into the Gotham economy.
Maybe there wouldn't be so much crime if only he'd invest in proper community outreach programs.
But then he wouldn't get to punch people every night.
That's true.
That's true. That is an important fact.
He does like punching people a lot.
Who doesn't?
Crazy people. Well, they do too.
All right. Should we read? We'll go maybe some historical fiction. We got historical fiction, adventure, or science fiction, and then we can finish off with the grand prize.
I haven't done children's either.
Oh no, we haven't done. Let's do some children's literature. Here we go. This is the winner from David Snook in Berkeley, California. As Snow White met with her new, cheaper replacement dwarves for the first time, shaking hands in turn with the likes of Sweaty, Greasy, and Flabby, aptly named identical twins Grabby and Gropey, and proud owner of a joy buzzer, Scabby, she found herself wondering if the savings would prove to be worth it, and she was about to learn why the others were so afraid of the seventh new dwarf, the oddly named Uzi.
Okay. No.
Not a fan of that one?
No.
Awful? No.
Terrible. Move on. Next one.
It's just a standard year 8 English class.
Okay.
All right. This is one I read earlier that I really liked. This is actually a dishonorable mention from the children's literature section. For the third time this week, Lassie dragged Timmy from the well, and while she performed CPR, wondered when the Martins would have the good sense to connect to the public water supply instead of living in their libertarian fantasy world of self-reliance.
5 stars.
Yeah, I really liked that one.
Or at least teach Timmy to swim, god damn it.
Yeah, so many problems would be solved if Timmy could just swim. All right, here we go. Science fiction. We'll skim through these. This is the winner from G. Andrew Lundberg in Los Angeles, California. Her mind racing through the hasty protocol briefing she had received shortly before launch 14 months ago. Commander Winona Bengston, the first Earther to lead a delegation to the Nardos system, regarded the alien commander who was now undressing her with his eyes, which wouldn't have been that big a deal except for that, his being Nardosian, the officer's 4 eyes were 10 feet long and prehensile.
Oh no. That's the start of a terrible pornography.
Or a very good pornography.
Or
There's a level with that kind of stuff.
yeah.
That was the winner.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Dishonorable mention. Let's pick one at random. Oh, here we go. One about the Enterprise.
Ooh.
Yes, the Enterprise crew had taken the non-interference in primitive culture's oath, but as the ship moved out of its undetected orbit around thumb-shaped planet of the galaxy Phalanges, Bones smiled to himself over beaming down a 20th century Earth football helmet made into a lamp because he knew they'd wonder what the fuck it was for eons.
And it's the Prime Directive.
It is the Prime Directive.
Could have saved themselves some words there.
Which they disobeyed that Prime Directive. It's more like a suggestion.
Yeah. It's so many times. Like they might as well just throw that rule out the window because no one ever pays attention to it.
I know, unless it's plot central that they disobey the Prime Directive for some sort of storyline.
Let's not get into a long ass debate about the politics of Star Trek.
Or the people that don't get that it only just realizing now that it's very progressive.
Yes. I want to go back to the time when Star Trek wasn't woke. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Have you seen the original series?
Star Trek was always a socialist paradise.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, I will say
we're not discussing that.
No. I will say my biggest complaint always about Stargate, especially every planet they go to speaks English.
That's true.
Unless them not understanding the language is central to the plot.
Yeah. There's no explanation why they can speak English in that show.
At least Farscape gave a reason why every alien spoke English because of the translator microbes.
Yeah, which is like a similar thing with Star Trek because they've all got like the communicator thingy in their neck or wherever.
Automatically translates for them. God, Farscape was so good. I've not seen that show in so long. Everyone go watch Farscape. Needs a revival. All right, shall we do adventure and then finish off with the grand prize winner?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, adventure. Oliver Mouser in Jacksonville, Florida. The man squinted his eyes as the blistering cold winds battered his rugged face, his eyes darting about, desperately hoping, daring to dream that amidst the frozen wasteland, he would find the last Klondike bar that he had hidden in his freezer. You hate how much you like that one, don't you?
It was just dumb because of the fact that it's like there's no adventure yet. I'm like, well, what's the adventure?
Looking for his Klondike bar.
You've never been starving and you know you've got that one thing you really want in your fridge and you cannot find it. Are you saying that's not an adventure, searching for that?
Well,
and then you find out someone ate it the night before.
That's more like a tragedy than an adventure.
Depending on your mood, that could also turn into a horror.
I guess.
Definitely crime.
Oh, seeks it revenge.
Let's go through. There's only 2 dishonorable mentions in this category.
Okay.
Adventure doesn't seem to be a very popular category. All right, let's see. He gasped as the giant airship pushed itself through the fog over New York Harbor, like a bosom emerging from an open blouse, and he realized his evening was going to turn into a hell of a night.
I mean, I've read worse. There are worse similes out there.
I was gonna say it gets the description across.
I guess. What's the second one? You said there was 2.
If there's a snake in your boot, you dump it out by the creek. And if it's got feathers, you dump it out in the creek. And if it's talking at you, you dump it out gently and apologize and keep an eye out for the mama dragon. And tarnation, these city slickers don't know the first thing about staying alive out here.
That I think that's bad just from the sheer fact that none of it made sense.
Well, that's a dishonorable mention for you. All right, shall we go to the 2023 grand prize
Ooh,
winner?
yes. So is this in a particular category?
I'm not sure. It may just be the one that they just liked the most.
Mm.
And I will say we didn't go through every genre. So if you liked any of these, anyone listening, jump on the website and read them yourself. And you've got decades of them going back, and they are a really good laugh.
Yeah, you will go down a rabbit hole in an afternoon.
Absolutely. And if you're a writer out there, it'll make you feel so much better about your writing.
Or it'll make you sit back and go, wow, wow.
I
Here
need
I
to
thought I was.
contemplate my life.
Yeah, it's like, wow, these are so much better. I have, to be honest, sat down and tried to write my own of like one of these for an entry, and it's really hard.
Mm.
It takes a lot of work to write something purposefully bad, but also good. It's this weird kind of purgatory. Anyway, 2023 grand prize winner, Maya Pasek from New York. She was a beautiful woman. More specifically, she was the kind of beautiful woman who had an hour-long skincare routine that made her look either ethereal or like a glazed donut, depending on how attracted to her you were.
I like that. That's very, very good, but bad. Bad for being good. Good, bad.
Bad.
I feel like that's actually a really good description right there.
See?
I guess what makes it bad is using the glazed donut metaphor.
Well,
It's
I
so
guess my only
true of some people, though, when you look at them.
it's the juxtaposition, and I'm going to say that word, of the fact that everyone loves glazed donuts, but yet we know that calling someone the equivalent of a glazed donut is quite the insult.
Hmm.
And so I think that's brilliant because everyone loves great glazed donuts.
Love a good Krispy Kreme.
Oh,
Mm.
now I want a donut.
And yet saying someone looks like one,
Not a compliment.
it's quite the insult.
That's very true. Julian, I think you legitimately really liked that one.
I did. Again, years of teaching middle school English, my bar for good writing is not particularly high.
Very, very low.
I will say, just as a middle school English teacher, has a student ever submitted something to you that you have gone, this is a legitimately great piece of fiction?
Yes. Yeah, it does happen every now and then. I'll read someone and I'll just be like, wow. Wow, this person has got talent.
Right.
And did you embrace them and like mold them to become the next Stephen King or
No, I steal their story, take their name off, put mine in and submit it.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Buy his book.
Yeah.
Totally not stolen.
Absolutely. With all original ideas by Julian Fanning.
Yep.
We're not being very nice this episode to Julian. We are legitimately happy that you've written a book.
Yes.
We do want people to actually buy your book.
We are.
And now they have to buy it because they've got to figure out, is it actually good or is it really that bad?
Yeah.
So buy it and find out.
Could Julian just submit the entire book to this competition and win?
Speaking of, do you
Yes.
think we should try and submit an entry as like together as the podcast, come up with an entry and submit it?
We could certainly try.
I don't think
Let
it
our
would
listeners tell
go
us.
anywhere.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
These are the rules, okay? If anyone out there is thinking of doing this, these are the rules for the entry. Each entry must consist of a single sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Sentences must be of any length, but we strongly recommend they not go beyond 50 or 60 words. Entries must be original and previously unpublished. Due to the volume of submissions, if your entry is more than one sentence or is missing a name or location, it won't be considered. Our contest year runs from one summer to the next. This is the US, by the way. All entries submitted by June 30th are eligible for the winners announced that August. Okay, so they announce each winner in August. We usually post the winners by mid-August, give or take a natural disaster or mild inconvenience. To receive an announcement email, sign up for our mailing list down there in the footer. In keeping with the gravitas, high seriousness, and general bignitude of the contest, I love that word, bignitude.
It's perfectly cromulent.
It is. It really embiggens the entire thing. The grand prize winner will receive a cheap certificate and bragging rights.
Hooray!
And then there is a link to the form to submit your entry. So any budding authors out there, I think if you want to really work your writing chops, I think this is a really good practice.
So I'm wondering, like, you probably wouldn't need to enter a specific genre or category. You just enter whatever it is that you submit, and then they will like categorize it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the form, and there's nothing. You just need your name, location, email, and your sentence. It doesn't specify.
Well, we've got some time, so I think perhaps if we put our heads together, we can come up with something really bad.
And anyone listening, please email in your bad sentences because I would love to read more.
Oh, yes. We'll have our own little competition.
If they are really good, we'll take them and use them in the competition.
Yes, we will
as
steal
our
them.
entry.
Yeah. By sending us your emails, you are legally giving us ownership of your work in perpetuity.
If we win, you have the satisfaction of knowing something you wrote makes people truly angry.
Yeah.
Yes, if you want to write in and give us your entries, maybe if we get enough, we'll have our own little competition, perhaps. We even come up with our own little certificate. We'll send it to you via email. You can print it out and put it on your office wall.
Better yet, I will print it out, take a photo of it, and send it via text.
Ooh, so complicated.
Yeah, I'll make it more complicated than it needs to be.
Oh wait, you should print it out, hold it up in front of you on this Zoom call, and then I'll take a photo with my phone of the screen, and then I'll text it to you.
And we'll make sure it's reversed in the camera, just for extra.
You see the trouble we're going to for you all?
Yeah.
You see what we do?
If you write in with a bad sentence, this is what you could get.
Brayton, do you want to remind everyone what our email address is?
Absolutely. It is nothelpfulpod@gmail.com. The link will be in the show notes. Yeah, feel free to email us in. I read every email we get, which at the moment is composed mostly from Sylvia and spam. Maybe I'll start reading
our various
spam
other
emails.
Listeners, Adrian and Richie, let's not anger them again.
Oh yes, they have emailed in, but Sylvia is emailing in like almost every episode, and we love it.
So far, she's winning. Everyone,
she's winning, and at the end of the year, you will get a prize.
And Sylvia, if you're listening, the fact that you know Sleepwalkers is amazing. And if there's any other bizarre, relatively small-known Stephen King adaptations you're fond of, please let me know.
Maybe we should just do a whole Stephen King episode, and Julian can just talk about Stephen King for an hour.
Oh, I could talk for so much more than an hour.
All right, part one. Yep. So
tell me to categorize his good endings. That'll be a short one.
Okay.
Ooh, nap.
Oh, stay down, King. Stay down.
I love you, Stephen.
He really does.
Which one's the one with the haunted lamp?
It's his best novel yet.
That is still one of my favorite Family Guy jokes of the whole thing. I love that joke so much.
Well, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Yeah, I'm posting a lot more stuff up on the Instagram. That seems to be the one that's getting the most hits from people. Instagram. So I'm posting
reels.
Yep, I'm posting a lot up there. I'm also sharing it all to Facebook so people don't miss out.
And our TikTok. Don't forget our TikTok.
Oh yes, sharing things there as well.
Not book-related things, just things about his life.
Yeah,
occasional lip slip.
Maybe
sort of thing.
Maybe don't look at that because it is very depressing.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah, maybe others find it hilarious.
Humor based on our pain.
That's life. But yeah, we've got a very exciting few weeks coming up. We've got several author interviews lined up.
And they're
Yes.
not me.
No, they're not.
They're real authors.
We're very much looking
You're a
forward
real
to this.
author. You have a published book. You can call yourself a real author.
We are very much looking
Oh.
forward to speaking with all of those authors coming up. So please do subscribe to the podcast so that you can get notified when those episodes drop straight away.
Yep. Unfortunately, I think in most of them, I'm the only consistent person because I think scheduling wise, I think Eloise is not going to be there for a couple and Julian's going to miss another one.
That's all right.
I just have no life, apparently.
You're holding it all together, Brayton.
I'm the only thing keeping us together.
And on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye. Thank you very much again, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. You're gone silent again. I hate it when you do that. All right, I'm saying goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.